Hello everybody. Want to make a video in regards to Jesus cleansed the temple. I want to call it Jesus cleansed the temple from business in it. And last night I was listening a couple of sermons about, and it's just like, wow. I mean, pastors. The love of money is the root of all kinds of evil, even twisting the scriptures, because they were lovers of money. And it's just like, to me, it's just so ridiculous. Preachers, like, they trying to apply, they saying truth, but the problem is that they saying, like, for example, the guy is like, we need to cleanse the temple, our own body, our body is the temple of God. I was like, that's another text. That's a 1 Corinthians 7 or 6. I forgot. But the point is, this is like, they don't want to deal with the text. It's just sad to hear and sad to watch. But anyway, so I wanted to make a video because to me, I was like so mad about. I was like, it's ridiculous. So I'm gonna, in a couple of videos I kind of mentioned before, but to me, I want to particularly talk about Jesus cleansed the temple from business, and all four Gospels mentions that. So. Yeah. So let's start with Matthew. And Jesus entered the temple and drove out all those who were buying and selling in the temple. And I can say that you can say building of the church. Because church itself, church is she, it's not it, and it's just and overthrew the tables of the money changers or cashiers, and seats of those who were selling doves. And he said to them, "It is written, my house shall be called a house of prayer, but you make it a robber's den." Then in Mark, the same quiet thing. Then they came to Jerusalem and entered the temple and began to drive out those who were buying and selling in the temple. Once again, buying and selling, and overthrew the tables of the money changers and seats of those who were selling doves. And he would not permit anyone to carry merchandise through the temple. And he began to teach and say to them, "Isn't it written, my house shall be called the house of prayer for all the nations, but you have made it a robber's den." Once again, Luke 19 verse 45 through 46. Jesus entered the temple and began to drive out those who were selling, saying to them, "It is written, and my house shall be called, my house shall be a house of prayer, but you have made it a robber's den." Once again, those who were, what's the interesting thing, like in Luke it's only talk about those who are selling, but before that talks about those who are buying and selling. And he would not permit anyone to carry merchandise through the temple. Interesting thing, like, even though Gospel of Mark is the shortest gospel, but in Gospel of Mark, actually, it's much more, well, besides John, it's much longer, much more detailed. So, interesting. So, he would not permit anyone to carry merchandise through the temple or through the church, building of the church. It's ridiculous. John 2:13 and 14. And Passover of the Jews was near, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem, and he found in the temple those who were selling ox and sheep and drove and doves, and the money changers seated at their tables. And he made a scourge of cords and drove all of them out of the temple with the sheep and the ox, and he poured out the coins of the money changers and overthrown the tables and those who were selling the doves. He said, "Take those things away. Stop making my Father's house a place of business." His disciples remembered that it was written, zeal for your house will consume me. It's just... And by the way, I believe Christ cleansed the temple twice. In Gospel of John, it was in the beginning of the Gospel, but in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, it was after he enters through the gate, where everybody puts leaves. Underneath a donkey. So interesting thing. I believe he cleansed it twice, and it's for the same reason. He drove out buyers and sellers, and he would not permit anyone to carry merchandise. And then he said, people just stop making my Father's house a place of business. He gives you a reason why. And many preachers just, they go to the other commentaries instead of study the Bible for themselves. It's very sad and sick at the same time. And because, you know why? Because they themselves have a coffee shop in the back and a bookstore. I want to read this Gospel of John 2:13 and 17 with the modern application. So, John 2:13 and 18. The Passover of the Jews was near, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem, or any city, Colorado Springs, where right now I'm living at. So he went up to Colorado Springs, and he found in the building of the church those who are selling books and CDs and t-shirts and cashiers seated at their tables. And he made a scourge of cords and drove them all out of the building of the church. With the sheep, with the DVDs and books, and he poured out the coins of the money changers or cashiers and overturned the table and those who were selling the doves. He said, "Take those things away. Stop making my Father's house a place of business." And his disciples remember that it was written, "Zeal for my house will consume me." Interesting thing, I also found this interesting. Modern translators, it's almost like they don't want to translate. Let me show you one thing real quick. It's 2 Peter 2 verse 3. I'll read the NASB versus King James, and and it's interesting thing is, so NASB, it says, "In their greed they will exploit you with false words. Their judgment from long ago is not idle, and their destruction is not asleep." Versus King James, "And through covetousness they shall they with faint words make merchandise of you. Those judgment now for a long time lingereth not, and the condemnation stumbleth not. Interesting thing, if you look at the interlinear Bible, actually, where is it? Oh man, I forgot this. If you look at the interlinear Bible, and it's right there, but actually let's look at even second verse. In the mouth. Oops, wrong one. Notice this. Exploit you. So they will exploit you. Like they actually exploit and to travel for business sake, to trade, traffic, to make gain of, deceive for one's own advantage. But see, it, like if you look at James 4:13, it has nothing to do with deceiving. It's just making engage in business and make profit. You know, it's just sick sometimes to watch some things. So if you look at the e-sword, it's once again, it's for making merchandise. Once again, merchandise, buy and sell, make merchandise. Anyway, but interesting thing, like, you know, even the translators, they would not, like all the modern translators primarily translate that thing, except actually this one translation I found, modern actually this one just came out, and like this book right there, they actually translated just like King James did, in King James. Even though I'm not a King James only, I looked it up in interlinear Bibles and trying to figure out which translation is more correct. Anyway, but notice this, like couple of things. Like actually, let's watch this one video real quick. It's by John Piper, where this question is brought up. So let's listen.
How is a church bookstore, especially one open on Sunday, different than the tables Jesus turned in the temple? How is a church bookstore, especially one open on Sunday, different than the tables Jesus turned in the temple? I'm not sure. It's risky business to he called them, he said, "You have made my Father's house a den of robbers." Now, why did he say that? Because there seems to be the key indictment.
See, once again, he don't want to deal with the whole context. He wouldn't. I mean, if he would have read all four times in all four Gospels, it's clear. It's like den of robbers, you know. As long as it's like I seen like this interpretation of 2 Peter chapter 2 verse 3 is that, oh, you know, as long as you don't overprice it, it's okay to sell it. I'm like, well, first of all, you know, there's a news flash, I guess, for you, my friends. Free Christ talked about when he was sent his disciples, heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse the lepers, cast out demons. Freely you received, freely give. Then book of Revelation, twice. And he said to them, it is done. I am the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give to anyone who thirsts from the springs of water of life without cost. And the Spirit, Revelation 22 verse 17, and the Spirit and the bride says, come, and let the one who hears say, come, and let the one who is thirsty come. Let the one who wishes take the water of life without cost. And but continue on.
The other thing he said that might get toward the key is, this is a house of prayer, and you have turned it into a den of robbers. Now my take on that has been that these sellers were exploiting the people by making the worship requirements a means of gain. You've got to have an animal to do this. And so we'll selling the animal here, and why we call them robbers? Since they did need animals? It wasn't wrong to have the animals made available, I guess. I'm not sure why he called them robbers. That's why I'm unsure what to answer. Because maybe when he called them robbers, he just meant, you shouldn't be selling at all. And that you're selling is robber-like. Or he might have meant they're exploiting the people. That's the way I'm taking it, to justify. And I don't see making Bibles and Christian literature available to our people at a time that's really convenient for them. They're already here. They don't have to drive down during the week. Making something available in any way, putting...
See, like once again, to my people. Well, you mean to your brothers and sisters in Christ? You know, many people, honestly, those people who buy and sell, well, particularly sell, you know, they don't understand the Christianity, I believe. They do not understand that your brother and sister in Christ and your mother. How are you going to sell a bunch of stuff to your mother in Christ? Huh? I mean, it's ridiculous. And so he going to explain away, it's like, oh, well, I need to make it convenient. Well, if you want to make it convenient, give them the Bible for free. Oh, it's too expensive. Well, Christ fed 5,000 plus. Because, you know, it's just so ridiculous. And he didn't charge to go up on a mountain, you know. His disciples, he went up on the mountains, and his disciples came to him. He didn't put down those 12 apostles, you know, his chosen 12, on the bottom of a mountain to collect some cash, you know, to enter the mountain to hear the sermon. It's ridiculous.
They have to jump through on their way to worship. They don't have to go in the bookstore, and nothing they do in the bookstore is required in order to get in there and benefit to the full from the preaching. So there's no means-end relationship here. Go to the bookstore, then you qualify to go to worship. It's not like that at all. It's simply a service that says, here, books are available at a time that's convenient for you, that will strengthen your So I'm open to being instructed on this, if that's question about whether or not announcements in the worship service that something is available in the bookstore becomes an exploitation of worship for sordid, for gain, for unrighteous mammon. I think at that point the question would be mainly motive. Is that the goal?
Motive? Really? Okay, so as long as you, I mean, okay, what kind of motive is that? I mean, really? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. What kind of motive? Well, you want to make money. That's the motive. Come on, be honest. Sick of that garbage.
I want to avoid that. The very fact that the question is being asked might mean it's a stumbling block for somebody. And I just don't want to give the impression to worshipers that we're about selling books at this church or selling whatever, and we use whatever means we can to get your attention for it. I don't want to give that impression. And so I'm going to back away from that if I discern that's what's happening in saying your ESV study Bibles are in, folks. I mean, this is a concrete example. A guy came up to me. We pre-ordered ESV study Bibles through the bookstore for people to get them, and they came in by the hundreds now, and they're available to be picked up. And somebody handed me, well, actually, they just walked up and said to me, just as I was walking into the second service North Campus, Sam said, executive pastor said, tell the people their study Bibles are available. I didn't do it.
John Piper. Oh, you're such a holy man. Yeah, I didn't announce it. Therefore, it's right. It's like, what's his name? Pharisees for what's his name? Kind of like what's this? Matthew 23 talks about wow, ridiculous. But let's finish it.
That's not going to use this. They can find out their study Bibles. I'm not going to make that little transaction part of the welcome. But I'm sure I have done that in other ways. So I appreciate that question being, pressed on me. I don't feel like I have the last word on how to avoid even giving the impression that this church is about money grubbing. It's about making money, because it's not. It's not. In my heart, books are available.
Just money just pours in, sweet talker. I mean, before I used to like him, but it's just reality is this, that the more I research and the more I look at it, it's ridiculous. It's sick. But let's just finish it.
Grow in grace. Books have been such a huge impact in my own spiritual walk. I want people to get them. So sell them as cheaply as you can, and make them widely available. And making them widely available feels like a really important ministry to me. There's no coercion in it, and it's there on Sunday morning because it's convenient for people. And whether I should say anything about that in the service, the question gives me cause not to.
Anyway, so you heard it yourself. Well, let me read this to you now. John Piper, who were lover of money, or listening to those things and were scoffing at him, at Jesus, or at the person who asked the question, and he said to them, and Jesus said to them, or this person said to them, and I say this to Piper, or anybody who is selling a bunch of stuff in their church: you are those who justify yourselves in the sight of men, but God knows your heart. For that which is highly esteemed among men is detestable in the sight of God. Now, you can twist scriptures, and like one of the root of it is, for the love of money is the root of all sorts of evil, and some, by longing it for it, have wandered away from the faith and deceived themselves with many griefs. And no wonder, like, in a 2 Timothy 3 verse 1 through 5, but realize this, that in the last days difficult times will come, for men will be lovers of self, lovers of money, boastful, arrogant, reviler, disobedient to parents, ungrateful, unholy, unloving, irreconcilable, malicious, gossips, without self-control, brutal, and haters of God, treacherous, like... Wow. But notice this whole... Avoid such men. Avoid them. That's pretty much it. That's the video. And like I said, he drove those buyers and sellers in the temple, and he would not permit anyone to carry merchandise. Christ said, takes those things away. Stop making my Father's house a place of business. Come on. That's it. I'm done. I hope it's been a blessing, even though I'm quite angry about this bunch of preachers twisting scriptures. Alright, that's it.